So I want to welcome everyone to, yes, our third New Jersey Cannabis Business Association Lunch and Learn. This has been a great series. We've been hearing from some of the best and neatest individuals in the cannabis space. And today is no different. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment and thank ABS, based in Trenton, for hosting this platform. I also want to thank our sponsors, Burton Trent Public Affairs, and of course, Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor, New Jersey Buzz, who's also helping us out on the technical side of things. So today, without any further ado, just welcome someone I've been blessed, professionally and personally, to have met some really neat individuals in my professional career, in my personal life. And today is one of those opportunities that I have not only to recognize that individual and introduce him to you, but to learn from him as well. Our guest today is Vaughn McKoy. Vaughn is the former business administrator in the city of Paterson. He spent 12 years in the regulated professions at PSE&G. He's the former head of the criminal division in the state attorney general's office. Vaughn is also a former assistant United States attorney in the District of New Jersey. He started his legal career with another large prominent firm in the state. He is, and this is probably one of the coolest things that I get to say, he is an undergraduate and law graduate from RU. So RU in the house.
In the house.
That's it. R.
You.
Not to leave this out, but Vaughn also has an MBA. So not only his Juris Doctorate, but his MBA from the NYU Stern School of Business. So Vaughn, welcome to the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association Lunch and Learn. Glad you could make it.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you everybody out there in association land for having me to be a part of this third Lunch and Learn that Ed and his organization has taken a leadership position on, and I'm thrilled to be here. And as you walk through my resume, Ed, I could say throughout my entire career, it's really been at the intersection of law, government, politics, and business. Starting out at Sills Commerce, where I was a part of the casino regulatory group. So I was a casino person working in the casinos and that regulatory scheme. And then I went to government, obviously, as a prosecutor, PSE&G, another heavily regulated industry, heavily regulated company. And then moving on to the city of Paterson, where we were successful in helping to set up one of the medical cannabis businesses in Paterson back in 2018. And so I see similarities between the regulatory scheme in the casino world, the BPU utilities world, and now in the cannabis space. So I see the straight line between each one of those, which I think has kind of given me a different point of view, or a unique point of view, when it comes to how these businesses should be run and organized and regulated in the state, particularly in municipalities.
Yes, and that's our topic today, Vaughn. So thank you for leading into that. That is our topic today, looking at government, municipalities, county government, and how they are very much, look, you can't do this program without counties, you can't do it without municipalities. And from last week, where we had Bill Caruso from Archer talk about being prepared for applications and the application process. This is a perfect segue into the significance, the importance of not just that local government relationship, but understanding what actually transpires in the mechanics and getting cannabis operations established. So if you don't mind, if you could, because you have done it.
Sure.
And you were part of that medical program process in Paterson, please do share kind of like the behind the scenes, what happens in that political process, not political per se, but that technical process that happens in government.
Right. So I came up with an acronym for today, and it's called RACE. And the first one would be relationships. What we found in Patterson when folks were thinking about establishing a medical cannabis business there, we had outreach from a number of different people, from consultants to lobbyists to the business themselves. And so the first thing is building a relationship with the community that you want to serve. I can't stress how important that is. And you start early and you start often. And I think it's important for people to understand that and go about building a relationship with the mayor, with the ward council person in the community in which you think you may want to site or locate a particular cannabis business, with community groups, with churches, not-for-profit organizations, pastors, because those are going to be the people who either support you, stand down, or object to you. And so if you can get in early and build a relationship and let them know that you're there to not only make money, but to also make an investment in the community. And I think that's very, very important. I don't think people are opposed to anybody making money, but you have to make sure that you also show what's in it for them. And it's not like some other businesses. You're not citing a Whole Foods, you're not citing a Chick-fil-A. Those things are pretty much easy to cite. But you're talking about, a business in which people have strong either moral, ethical, social, or other views. And so you really have to make sure you sit and listen and you understand what those views are and come up with a game plan to address them. So I would say relationships is number one. Once you build the relationships, it gives you access, because access is going to be very important as you shepherd your way through municipalities. And as you probably know, New Jersey's different. We got 561 of these things. Every municipality is different. And so what works in one municipality may not work in another. And then you have different forms. You have the town form of government, you have the city form of government. So you have different forms of government: strong mayor, weak mayor, Faulkner Act. So all of these things come into play when you're thinking about how to gain access through the relationships that you have. And then that also brings accountability. People want to make sure that you are accountable to the community that you're serving. And accountability is key because of the nature of the business that you are seeking to engage in that community. So you got to make sure that you hold yourself accountable. C, communication. You got to be able to communicate effectively, early and often with all of the constituencies in the community. And that may require, like we saw in some other instances, hiring a consultant, hiring a community organization that's going to work with you on your behalf, that knows the local politics, and that can really help you kind of work your way and navigate through the intricacies of city government, that can demonstrate your commitment, to the project and to the community, and whatever financial or other benefits that you're going to bring to that community in connection with your venture. E, equity and excellence. Everybody's looking for equity. And so how does your business model support equity in the community by making sure that those who have been disproportionately impacted through marijuana enforcement and incarceration have an opportunity to participate in your business enterprise? And you need to operate that thing with excellence. No one wants to see a subpar business, no matter what it is, in their community. And so I think if you can do those things, and obviously, I don't have enough time to drill down on each one of those, but relationships, access, accountability, communication, commitment, equity, and excellence, I think will create a formula for you, if you will, to do the things that are necessary in order for you to at least make the inroads that are appropriate for you to get the decision makers to support you, whether it be before the city council, whether it be before the governing body, the business administrator, because as the law is structured right now, you probably heard of Section 31, it really gives the towns the opportunity to do four things, the type or class of business that it wants in its community. The location. So zoning is very, very important. You know, where are these classes of licenses going to be zoned? The manner and times in which they operate. So the town has the ability to determine whether you can open on Sundays, what time you can close, what time you can open. So all of those things affect revenues. And so you want to make sure that you're building that relationship, you know, with the people in the town so that you can maximize your investment when you go there. And again, early and often. And before, obviously, you know, you can put your application in, you got to identify a site. You're not just going to get a license for a site that doesn't exist. And so you're going to have to do the legwork beforehand to make sure that you've laid the groundwork in the town, perhaps get a letter of support. We gave support letters to various entities who came to us. We didn't express a preference, but they came to us and said, hey, we have site control for a piece of property in your town. We checked with zoning, it could go there. We want a letter of support from you that if we do get a license from the state, you will allow us to operate. And we doled out those, not freely, but to those who we thought could be operators in the city of Patterson.
That's neat. And so, Vaughn, thank you very much. So RACE, I did put that with the acronym in the chat feature, so please do take a look at that. I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. So when it comes to towns, what are some definite don'ts? I know people sometimes get very eager with respect to getting into a community and kind of I've seen like the peacock factor where you want to come in and have your tail already fanned out, but you're a stranger, right? Many of these companies, many potential licensees are strangers. So what are some definite don'ts when it comes to the municipal aspect?
I would say the first thing is you have to approach these towns with a level of humility, because it is really a privilege to operate, you know, any business, but let alone the cannabis business in this state and in that town. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, okay, I've been successful in California, I was successful in Colorado, I was successful in Oregon, that translates to success in New Jersey. And they come in with a very arrogant attitude about you should be happy to have us operate in your town as opposed to the other way around. So I think you really have to approach it as a privilege and with humility. And again, I think it's also getting the right people in the community on your team. I think that's important, you know, to seek out and find those who are of some stature in the community, really get them to understand the business model, the proposition, and really approach it from a learning standpoint as opposed to a standpoint where you are conceited and arrogant and know it all. And I think if you approach it with a posture of humility and how you want to help solve a problem in the town, whether it be unemployment, I think that's a big one. You know, you can help. So we're here not only to make money, but we're here to also be a partner with you and help you solve a problem in your town and really address those needs as well. So I think approaching the situation with humility and making sure that you are not taking a very paternalistic view, but you're really coming to the town to help solve a problem because you believe that you have a product or a business or a model that can help solve some of the problems that the issue's having, whether it be a tax issue, you know, revenues for the town. I think that's a big driver. Unemployment, you know, is a big driver. B2B services, you know, is a big driver. So there are a number of different things, if you approach it that way, that you're not just there to make money, but you're there to solve a problem. I think people are more receptive to that approach.
You know, Vaughn, again, just brilliant points. And, you know, and this is a little bit change of gears, but, you know, the normalization of cannabis, right? So part of what the Cannabis Business Association is about. So beyond being just the state's first and largest trade organization built around establishing a responsible, sustainable, diverse, and profitable cannabis industry, in our early days, we dealt with what I consider the silos. We had the silo of social justice. We had the silo of economic parity. And then somewhere in a distant third was commerce.
Right.
And so now that we're at this point where it is very much a singular conversation,
Yes.
and you and I have talked about this, good economic policy includes social justice.
Correct.
Good economic policy has parity in it. But yet you do bring the notion back that we're still not quite normalized, even though from a commercial standpoint, we are solving many of the issues that other industry solves, right? That of employment, that of taxation, or the rateables, right? Rateables, employment. So what are some of your thoughts on like the normalization aspect of where we are and how we're being viewed, especially by those local leaders?
Yeah, it's tough because of the historic interpretation or the historic stigma, if you will, regarding cannabis and marijuana. And if we're not careful, we have all fallen or continue to fall into the historic conceptions or preconceptions about it. And so I think it's going to take a while for people to overcome their internal biases about cannabis in the community. And I think that's changing. I mean, you can see 60 or 70% of the people in New Jersey who voted on it last year or the year before, and that's how we got to this point today. So those views have changed over time for different reasons. Some had a social justice position, some had an economic position, some had I would say, a moral or ethical position. So there were different reasons why different people had different views on it. But I think we all can agree that at this point, the way that those laws have been enforced historically have had a disproportionate impact on people that look like you and me. I don't think anybody can dispute that. I don't think anybody can dispute that we are spending more money on the type of enforcement for these type of offenses than we should be spending in the neighborhood of $150, $200 million a year on low-level enforcement. Nobody can argue with that. Nobody can argue about the impact on housing, financial aid, and other things that have prevented folks who had a conviction for these offenses from moving forward with their lives. So there's so many different reasons why I think we're at the point we're today. And I think it's going to take more education because we are all still learning, about this business. And I think people have come around on the medical, obviously, and I think attitudes towards social use or adult use are shifting. I think people understand, there are significant individuals out there, and the science and the medicine has shown that, cannabis can be part of a treatment regimen to help treat certain illnesses. But then there are those in the adult use side who self-medicate for whatever, ailment or reason or just for leisure that they have. And so people have various attitudes about that. And that's why I go back to running the business with equity and excellence. If you can run your business with equity and excellence, I think that helps to mitigate, some of the pushback, that you may get from a community on a particular aspect of your business. And we understand that everybody's going to agree on, how this business should be regulated or how it should be implemented. But I do think that because it's the law, I think we all have an obligation now to run it with equity and excellence, to make sure that the law that sets aside the money from the taxes for the impact zones is very, very important. And I think we can't lose sight of that. And if I am a potential investor, I'm looking at the impact zones as to where I want to be, because I think those impact zones are zones where folks have been disproportionately impacted, and the legislature has recognized that money needs to go here or there. So whether it's Patterson, Newark, Jersey City, East Orange, Camden, Bridgeton, New Brunswick, I mean, they outline them all. And so I'm looking at those places first. If you want to talk about, municipal relations, just because I'm looking at places where the legislature has already carved out and they appear to be, open, to having cannabis businesses in their jurisdiction. So I would look there first.
That's great. That's wow. That's priceless information for our guests. There's somebody had a question in the chat, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. I do want to pause for a quick commercial break. I happen to be, once again, at 1911 Smokehouse in Trenton. And so the artwork that's behind me, somebody sent a note saying, wow, that's neat. So the artwork here, local artists come to and actually display their works here at the Smokehouse, 11 West Front Street. And so it's one day it will be cannabis friendly because Executive Chef Reggie Halleck is already working on an infused menu. But while I'm pausing at 1911 Smokehouse, what Reggie prepared for me today is the like a barbecue meatloaf with his signature corn muffin. And so Reggie, thanks for hooking me up. So the one question that came up in the chat feature, and this is probably a result of what happened with the 2019 round of applicants. There was over a year, it's like an 18-month delay.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at almost 2 years in the making, the 2019 round in the making. A lot of people had relationships. A lot of people had sites. They had site control. They hung on to it as long as they could, right? Some elected officials have come and gone, right? and who knows, they may be back, right? Because that's how Jersey
That's the way it goes. That's
right?
the way it goes.
But just a couple of thoughts on what happens when you have that disconnect through nobody's fault, through not the applicant's fault, through right force majeure, right? What happens? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the only thing you can do is re-engage at this point. Like you said, Ed, politicians come and go. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow. City council members change, council presidencies change. And so I think what really doesn't change that much, I think, would be the community activists in those groups, in those communities. They don't change as much as the politicians change. And so the not-for-profits, the community activist groups, the residents groups, those people pretty much, stand the test of time. And so making sure that you stay connected with those groups, I think, is just as important as the relationships with the politicians and the decision makers. So I would say you have to re-engage and figure out who the right partner to re-engage with, because as you know, with new leadership comes new partners. And the old mayor and the old leadership may have liked XYZ. Now this one likes ABC, so you have to find out who ABC is, who's going to help you cultivate that relationship that gives you access so that you can have communication and you can operate with equity and excellence. So it's really who's on your team. And the players may change. And so if the players change on the other team, the players may have to change on your team.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Look, we've been around Jersey politics long enough. we know the players change, but the game remains the same.
And to be totally frank, I mean, you and I both have been on both ends of it. There are times when we're on the winning team, and there are times when we're not on the winning team. So it just depends on who's in power, who controls it, who they like, and who's a part of their team and their network. So that's just the way it works.
Right. And so I would throw out one more word in terms of word association. It doesn't go with your RACE acronym, which was absolutely fantastic, but patience, right? Patience, because political processes, I mean, they can be just nerve-wracking, right? When you're in the middle of something and then the wind changes, and now all of a sudden you're blowing in the wind and you're out here, and then another week the wind shifts again.
Yeah.
So patience.
Yep. And I think that's why, again, I go back to communicating early and often to as many people as you can, and just figuring out, how to stay relevant while you wait. And there's an art to that, stay relevant while you wait, because the process can take some time, and you want to stay relevant and stay before the decision makers and be a part of the community that you're looking to serve, in this business.
That's true. So, Vaughn, as we're nearing our time, so that people can, in fact, go to lunch or finish up their lunch, I just want to, again, thank you so much for taking the time. So if you missed the introduction, anyone may have missed the introduction, our guest today, Vaughn McKoy of Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor. Vaughn has extensive experience in the regulated industry and just in law. Being in the Attorney General's office, being in the U.S. Attorney's office, your work, not only your work, Vaughn, and look, because we don't get to see each other as often as we'd like,
right.
But I do want to say this. You are a man of character. And it is a pleasure to know, because you're a good person, not only a great professional, but you're a great person. So any closing thoughts? I just want to, again, just turn it to you for closing thoughts.
I would just say thank you and the association for this opportunity, and everybody who took some time, this afternoon to listen to this presentation. I do think that this is a new industry. We're all learning as we go, as new things come out each and every day. But I don't think you can go wrong if you run the race. Get your relationships, have access and accountability, communicate early and often, show your commitment to the community, provide some equity, and operate with excellence. And I think that any community would be happy to have a business that runs that race.
That's great. Vaughn McKoy of Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor, our guest today. Absolutely wonderful working with you again, Vaughn. There were some other questions that were in the chat feature. Please do visit New Jersey Cannabusiness, all spelled out, www.newjerseycannabusiness.com. That is our website. Please do check out memberships. We would love to have you as a member. We so appreciate your support so that we can have events like this, programs like this. We've been beat up with COVID. We haven't had our in-person networking events. Hopefully you find this chat feature valuable. That's why we keep it open throughout the presentation. I do want to address one question that I saw with respect to the black market. And also, just real quick, what I've learned recently, we no longer call it the black market, right? We call it the legacy market, right, Vaughn? Have you heard that?
Yes. That's right. Legacy market.
That's it. And they are, in fact, working on ways to get the legacy market into the regulated market. Right. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Friday at our next Lunch and Learn at 12 noon. Everyone, thank you so much for your support. We again thank our sponsors, Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor, ABS, based in Trenton, who is our platform host, New Jersey Buzz, who is also working with us, Burton Trent Public Affairs, a consistent sponsor, and just want to thank you all for joining us. Look forward to seeing you. Visit the website. Think about membership. Thank you so much.